Now it's time for Teacher Talk, James's thoughts and insights into teaching international students.
All right, I'm very pleased to welcome Mr. Paul Duke to our podcast. He's an English instructor, tutor, writer, and creator of the series English Weirdness. Thank you for coming on to the show, Paul.
My pleasure.
Now, I'm really excited to talk to you about your YouTube channel because it is fantastic, students. If you're out there looking for a way to improve your English, English Weirdness is amazing. And tell us a little bit about the series.
Sure. Well, in terms of content, what it is it's an exploration, an in-depth exploration of specific grammar or syntax points or issues that when not understood properly and not used, I don't want to say properly, I'm not a grammar Nazi or anything, but if we don't really understand them and use them correctly, it's not just a question of doing it right or doing it wrong. It can actually lead to some confusions and miscommunications, that can cause us problems in relationships or socializing. So each episode, we try to depict that. We try to dramatize a little situation where something could go wrong. Now, we take it to an extreme for comedy or weirdness. And then the episode features myself and the student who stars in it really discussing deeply the grammar point. And we use animations to make it graphic and visual and hopefully clearer. And then by the end of each episode, we return to the dramatization, the little story, and we resolve it, happy ending. Good grammar leads to good communication, leads to everybody happy. And
is it your student that you teach at your
absolutely,
school?
They're all students. In fact,
not actors.
No. In fact, not only are the performers in each episode, all of the filmmaking crew, besides me, are all students of mine or former students. Oh, really? It's an entirely amateur production. And by amateur, I mean there is one person involved in the project who's actually an aspiring filmmaker. He's my cinematographer and editing partner, and he's actually going to film school now. So he has a lot of expertise, but everyone else has no idea how to make videos or films or anything. They got involved because they wanted to try something new. They wanted to see how videos are made, and presumably because they wanted to help me and they trusted me. And
is it part of a class project, or is it just an extracurricular activity that the students can join?
Yeah, completely extracurricularly. It's I sort of recruit students that I've worked with in my school. I usually teach advanced and master's level students, university preparation. And I look for students with a particular kind of charisma or, that certain something that might translate to not only them, so they'd be engaging on camera, but most of them are actually, shy, reserved, reticent students like many. I think I've had one who had a real extroverted, he was episode number 2, a boy named Diego. He loves to dance. He loves to be the center of attention. But most of the other ones are very reserved, and they found something in producing it with me. They found an opportunity to try and extend themselves a little bit. So that's really nice to see.
Yeah, I think it would tremendously build their confidence.
Yeah.
Because, of course, they're shy and reserved, and then they're on camera where you cannot necessarily be shy and reserved.
Yeah. A good example was the young fella that stars in my episode 7, the most recent one. Sorry, episode 8. He was one of the quietest students I've ever encountered, but there was something to him that I couldn't crack. So one day, he happened to be in my classroom during lunch hour, and I was doing some marking, and he came in and sat down and had his lunch with me. I just said to him, I said, "Hey, would you ever be interested in appearing in one of my videos?" And he just jumped up and said, "Yeah, you bet, teacher." And it was the most I'd heard of him in months. I don't know what it was. There was something there that told me he's hiding his personality behind his English, his lack of confidence with English. And he turned out great. He did a great job. He was game for it, and I think it really helped his confidence. Now he's in university, doing well by all accounts.
Now,
So
you
for me,
started,
it's a fun project.
right, you started this project. You started English Weirdness, the YouTube channel, before all of the pandemic and COVID-19 hit. So it's not a situation where you got the idea because you had nothing to do. You started it
No.
before, correct? So where did the idea come from? Like, why did you decide to do this whole YouTube series as an extracurricular? You know, I mean, it's an ambitious project, and if you haven't seen it, students, teachers out there, get onto YouTube because it's really well made. It's really well done. So why
Thank
did
you,
you
James.
start
Thank
it?
you. Yeah, it is ambitious. It's not the kind of thing you just whip off in your spare time. Just before I tell you the story of it, just to put it into context, usually it takes us 3 full days to shoot them, each episode. And by that, I mean starting on a Friday afternoon, going till midnight, Saturday and Sunday from 7 in the morning until at least midnight, sometimes later. So really solid shooting days. And of course, then it's hundreds of hours of editing and post-production for me. Well, what happened in 2018? I had been teaching for, by that time, 7 years, full-time schedule, a little bit of tutoring on the side, and loving it. But I'm 55 now, and I started developing severe arthritis in my legs from old sports injuries. And I'm doing okay, but it made me think, how much longer would I be able to stand up in a classroom, and teach vigorously and energetically? So I started exploring other options about what I could do with my teaching that wouldn't require walking to the school, up and down stairs, all that kind of stuff, standing up in the classroom. So I thought, well, there's this new frontier with video, Zoom. So I thought I'll explore online tutoring. So I built a little website to promote my tutoring. And I started doing a little bit of this, and I used Zoom early on. I was very comfortable with it. And I started, tutoring some former students who were now in university and wanted help with papers and stuff like that. And I thought, when an international student comes to town, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and they want a tutor, whether it's an online tutor or meet in-person tutor, they've got to use something like Craigslist, anonymous little entries that look really kind of sleazy. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if they could see an entry?
Sometimes a little dangerous because you don't know what you're walking into, especially.
You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, you don't know what you're getting, and you don't know what you're walking into. So it's tricky.
Absolutely. And I thought, rather than a student contact an anonymous tutor and then agree to meet them at the library or something.
Right.
What if I could make a little
I see
video?
it all the time in the cafes. They're teaching in the cafes. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
And for the most part, I think it's benign. But, there's 4 years ago, there was a young international student here who was kidnapped and murdered.
Yeah.
Every parent's worst nightmare. And that really made me think. So I thought, what if I attached a simple little video of me giving a lesson in my classroom? So any potential student that would hire me could see what they were getting and see what I am, and would they be comfortable with contacting me. So I approached one of my students with whom I'd worked for 3 or 4 months already, and I knew he was very interested in filmmaking. We had lots of great conversations about cinema and film, and I'm a lifelong cinema file, I suppose. And I said, and I knew he had a camera. So I said, would you be willing to stay after school one day and just shoot me at a whiteboard? And he said, sure. And then I thought about it. Another classmate of his stayed after school while we did this, and she was watching and giggling. And I thought, it's really weird me teaching nobody. Why don't you come up here and be in the video with me? And we'll do what I do in classrooms. And I always favored.
Essentially, that's Ing Video, right? Ingvid, the other YouTube channel where they have just somebody teaching at the whiteboard. But you didn't feel comfortable, and you said, "I need a person," because it is sometimes strange to teach just to a camera, right?
Absolutely. And my style in my classroom had always been sort of Plato. I would always inquire. I always wanted the student to discover things, so I was very fond of that whole concept of eliciting and inductive grammar teaching, where you take an example and you analyze it and pull out a grammar rule, sort of reverse direction. So I invited the young lady to join me in front of the whiteboard, and we did a little lesson. And that really got me thinking. I thought, what else could you do with this? Well, we made that video, and her mother is an educator in Japan. She went out to dinner one day with her former college friends, who are all now mayors and ministers and educators. And they asked about her daughter, and she said, oh, she's doing great. She's in college in Canada now. And oh, she's in a video. So this woman showed her colleagues this video, and they all loved it, including the mayor of a small city in northern Japan, who wanted to invigorate his English language program at a certain high school. And he wanted to try innovative techniques, outside the box things. And he said, that's exactly what we need. We need a Canadian English teacher with that kind of lesson, because what we were modeling on camera was student-teacher interaction, teacher asking the student for the answer. I mean, I know the answer, but I'm trying to pull it out of them. And they really wanted that to be modeled. So they got in touch with me and said, well, if we gave you a little bit of money, could you make more of them? So I said, well, sure, of course. I hadn't planned on it. I just wanted a sample video for my website to promote my tutoring. But a little bit of money made me really think what would be possible. So the principal of that school came to Vancouver. We had a nice lunch together, made a simple contract, and I agreed to produce 10 episodes for them. And they gave me a decent amount of money, which I thought I could work with.
So English Weirdness is being shown in Japan.
Absolutely.
Essentially, and you're just putting it out on YouTube for the rest of the world to see.
That's right. So our contract was such that it's non-exclusive, but it gives them the license right to use it in their classroom as curriculum.
Right.
And I can use it also however I feel. So we've got a very mutually beneficial arrangement. So based with the money they gave me, I decided, okay, let's push this a little further. Let's involve dramatization. So we had this format of me and a student on screen, and I thought it'd be cool if we had a different language group student represented each episode. So the first episode was a young Japanese woman. The next one would be a Brazilian or a Colombian or a Venezuelan or something. Mix it up. So the Japanese students would also get exposure to some Europeans and Americans. And then I thought, well, let's push this. So I started writing and coming up with ideas and discussing it with, I have to mention him. His name is Uriel, and he's my cinematographer. He's from Mexico, and he's a very, very talented young man. So he and I started discussing, well, what's feasible technically and what's possible in terms of storytelling. So we decided to open each episode with a dramatization and close each episode with the dramatization. And the middle part would be the whiteboard, the animation, and the discussion with the student. So we shot another episode, and we did that one very cheaply. In fact, I think I bought them pizza while we shot in the evening one night. It was very simple. By the third episode, after many discussions, we really kind of found a stride. We thought, okay, this is how we have to structure it. Present the communication gone wrong, analyze it, resolve the conflict, just like a classical narrative. But that involved more student actors. We decided to rent some lighting equipment to, polish the image up a little bit. And because he was, volunteering so much of his time, I wanted this young man to also be able to push his envelope with his camera skills and try new techniques to build up his visual resume. So we rented a new camera, again with the lighting and so on. And that started costing more and more money. So once we hit our stride and we decided we're going to do this kind of episode each time, it amounts to about $1,000 an episode, in answer to your earlier question. So we're at $1,000 episode. And that includes renting, and this is a shout out to the rental company. It's called Gearbase Camera Rentals. young fledgling company here in Vancouver, and I think they might be in Toronto. I'm not certain, but they're fantastic. They've been very supportive. They've given us discounts when we were pushing our budget. We rent lights from them, camera equipment, lenses, odd accessories here, audio recording equipment. We want to really polish the audio, so we have lavalier remote microphones.
Right.
And so that costs about $1,000 each episode. And as I said, that's 3 days of shooting. So the least I can do is feed my volunteers. So
now, what has been the reaction?
Well, the reaction's been incredibly positive. Once I started putting it on YouTube, I then realized I had to learn about social media marketing and YouTube marketing and how to grow the viewership beyond my own Facebook networks. So I started learning all about that, which is a huge growth curve, huge learning curve. And now we're getting averaging about 4,000 views per episode on YouTube alone. Interestingly, when I launched a couple of episodes on Facebook, I would get over 10,000 views on Facebook per episode. So there's clearly people watching it. Right. And all the feedback I get is fantastic. The only negative criticism I get occasionally, and this is occasionally, is that it's too long. And people say, well, you should make some of those short videos. And I understand that because YouTube seems to favor short videos. But I also, didn't set out to be popular on YouTube. I set out to make a cool video series. I want it to be different. There's lots of videos by great teachers, including Ingvid, which is a Toronto company, I think. They're extremely popular. They have millions of viewers. And they break English down into specific grammar and vocab and pronunciation points and do a nice, clean lesson. And they're about 10 minutes a video. So there's room for that, but I set out to make something different. And it had to be exciting for me because of all the time I was going to spend doing it. It has to be, it has to appeal to my creativity and my. Well, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a movie maker, not a teacher. So I'm going back to my childhood dreams.
But I think some of the teachers listening might be saying, you're working Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then you're teaching Monday to Friday. Yeah. It's too much. It's too much.
It's absolutely too much.
Okay.
And they're not wrong. I started making this in 2018. And now look where we are, right? So it's been an enormous amount of work. And it's not for everyone. You can make a simpler video, a shorter video. You can make that quite simply. But as I said, I always wanted to be a filmmaker, so I wanted to jump into this and sort of indulge my childhood dreams and make something a little bit more film-like.
Now, since COVID-19 hit, are you seeing a spike? Are you seeing a greater response, a greater reaction to it?
Well, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'm still learning how to read all the YouTube analytics to really map that out. Yeah. I released an episode during COVID. I released an episode 2 weeks ago, episode 8. I originally wanted to release it in March to coincide with basketball season because it has a basketball storyline. But of course, the whole thing, basketball season, the NBA was one of the first corporations to shut down. So I released it 2 weeks ago, and I'm not sure if more people have seen it or less than would have without the COVID lockdown. I do suspect there's more young people online. When my school closed down in March, we initially switched over to online classes. And my students told me as much, that they were spending all day watching Netflix and YouTubes. And in 2 weeks, I've had almost 2,000 views, which is pretty fast to get to. I think we're at 1,800. So it seems pretty normal. I'm not sure if there's a spike. Hard for me to tell at this point. I don't know what is really better.
Now, what would you suggest to teachers out there who are now, many perhaps unemployed, because of COVID-19, so many closures in the language industry, language school industry, the language travel industry, all over the world. And, they're thinking, I want to do something online. I got to do something digital. What should I do? What would your advice be to them thinking about doing something on YouTube?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Let me say this first. I don't make a penny on YouTube. I don't have that kind of volume. You do need substantial viewership and volume to start making money through YouTube's advertising connection. I'm fortunate because right off the bat, I had this arrangement with a school in Japan. And I'm trying to build on that, actually, so that more schools can license my videos for use in curriculum, kind of subscription model. But the promotion takes a lot of time and effort, and learning how to do social media. It's not something my generation does naturally, so to speak.
And I would say, look, for 2 years. This is not a project that you started during the pandemic and during COVID-19 and say, I'm going to do 3 months and try to make a fast buck. This is a 2-year process. And I think anybody trying to go online doing anything digital, even our little podcast, I mean, we started it in 2018. We're growing, and I understand, but I mean, it's been a 2-year process as well. It's not been, it's not been without a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. So I think if a teacher is interested in doing it, there's opportunities there. But like anything, it is a whole other world. It's a whole other realm of that. Well, let's put it this way. When we teach in a classroom, we are really relying on our knowledge, our education, our passion, our ability to interact with people on a one-to-one level. Those skills translate into video work, no doubt. But the big difference is there's a huge amount of technical things involved with video work or YouTube. Even if you're just doing online tutoring, I've met teachers who have really struggled to adopt Zoom. Zoom is very great, perfectly viable for teaching online, and you can make some money tutoring or running classes. If you promote that, you'd still need to, promote yourself through a website, social media marketing. So there's a whole realm of social media marketing you need to kind of learn about. With YouTube, you're going to have to learn about cameras, lighting, editing. All this stuff is available now. In fact, one reason as a child I gave up my dreams of being a filmmaker was it seemed so far away. I grew up in Oakville, Ontario. So Hollywood seemed very far away. And to make a movie, you needed millions of dollars and expensive equipment. You don't need any of that now. You can make these things pretty cheaply.
And I should say that you are the star of the show.
Yeah, well, that took some doing.
And that is a challenge, because one of the challenges on Zoom is, you got to look at the camera. You have to be aware of the camera and aware of what you are saying.
That's right.
Because you make a mistake, you're going to have to edit it. You're going to have to fix it. Then you've got to do it again and again and again. Whereas when you're teaching, you can make mistakes and it's not a big deal. But it's on camera. It's on film.
Right. And that whole thing of interacting basically with this strange little object on your desk is very different than interacting with people in your room.
Right.
When you're with those students in your classroom, I don't know how in your experience, but in my experience, they really guide what I do in a classroom. Right. I might start with a lesson, but they direct the course of how the lesson unfolds based on what they want to talk about, what they're interested in, and what they need to learn. You don't get that when you're working in video. You might get a little bit more of that interacting with a class or a student on Zoom, but these are new skills to learn. So if a teacher is interested in making the move, I wholly recommend it. But there is a learning curve to it. And you just have to be prepared to do some work and learn. There's lots of great information on YouTube. There are tutorials about how to make a YouTube video. There's great information out there. But it does take time and work. And let's face it, teachers are exhausted when their teaching day is done.
And time and all of that. Now, what is the future of the channel? What are you going to be doing with English Weirdness? Because I'm assuming your episodes are going to finish after the 10th episode. And then what?
Good question. In a dream world, I would continue shooting those episodes, make another season. However, the arrangement I have with the school in Japan has changed. They no longer want to use English Weirdness. They have a 10-episode season that they can recycle each year. Now they want live interactive lessons every month with me, and that's fine. And they've added a class so I'm teaching 2 one-hour classes per month, and that's still fun. And they still use English Weirdness as they go along. So in a dream world, I'll continue shooting another season of English Weirdness. I've got ideas for it and some rough outlines of scripts. By the way, I write all those scripts and episodes. However, I'd really like to make it with real money behind it and perhaps actors and a real crew. So once I have a full season done, I'd actually like to pitch it to some TV channels or something, because it may also appeal to not just international students, but young native speaking children learning the basics of English. So there may be an education channel that would either buy the series or, throw some real money at me and ask me to create a more refined version of it. So that's kind of the dream. In the meantime, I'm also shifting gears to a smaller, more simple YouTube series that I'm going to be able to make from my home. I don't know if you can see it, but I've actually got a whiteboard here. Yeah. I've got my home camera and lighting system. So this will be more like a classic YouTube 10-minute series. I'm calling this one English Confidential. So it's basically me explaining how when a learner is using certain slang expressions or certain idioms, what can happen when you use them wrong or incorrectly or in the wrong context. So it'll be funny. It'll be a little bit edgy, and still keeping within this sort of style that I've established for the channel. So that's something I'm doing in the COVID lockdown on my own, something I can put out a little more frequently. And what I've learned about YouTube is if you really want viewership and traffic to grow, the number one thing you need to do is release content regularly and pretty frequently. Like once a week is the ideal. And the more you do that, the more your presence grows on YouTube, and all of your videos interact and promote themselves through the YouTube algorithm. That hasn't happened with YouTube, with English Weirdness, because I put it out like every 3 or 4 months. It's not frequent enough to generate YouTube search traffic, which is okay. I didn't intend that. But so part of the future of English Weirdness will be my new short form series will help drive traffic to see English Weirdness. But in a dream world, the weirdness would continue because I've really enjoyed making it.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. Writer, director, star of English Weirdness, Paul Duke. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, James.
Have you downloaded the Study It ESL textbooks yet for your classroom? The Study It textbooks are the first ever digital and interactive textbooks. Once downloaded, Wi-Fi is no longer required. Each book contains video and audio exercises, detailed grammar keynotes, reading and writing assignments, and amazing speaking projects. Grammar, conversation, pronunciation, business English, and listening textbooks are available. Visit www.studyitbooks.com for more information.